It's interesting. You said it, and you also suggested it, that when we look at the migration patterns of Black people, we also recognize that they are inspired by their migratory experience to express themselves artistically,
Okay.
right? I mean, not only do they, not only is that one of the requirements of Black people that they have some purpose and function, but they're inspired by that migration to do that. And I don't know if you want to. I know we're going to talk about religion, but because in terms of identity, but I don't know if you wanted to talk about migration and inspiring literature, because I think both of them speak to this sense of identity. It's recognizing who they are, even though they've traveled outside of Africa. There's this need to express who they are, and you get it through their religion, you get it through art, you get it in some other forms.
Well, to put it first, African peoples have been a people of movement. You know, we talk about this affectionately in terms of dance and rhythm and things of that sort, but also through this idea of migration, the idea that whether by force or by choice, when we move, whether it's from the context of, on the African context, from one village to the next village, one city to the next city, one continent to the next continent, that those factors are provoked by needs or concerns, and they're also producing a different set of needs and concerns. So what I mean by that is, and I can use it, I can do this best by a small set of examples. One of my favorite artists of all time in musical terms is Bob Marley. When he, after a series of events, including a death threat against his life in the 70s, realized that he and his family and his band, the Wailers, had to leave Jamaica. They proceeded to pick up and move from the island of Jamaica to England and set up house in London. There he produces one of his most popular albums, Exodus. Now that works on several levels. Obviously he's making a reference to the biblical story of Moses and the Israelites as they were leaving Egypt and headed for the Promised Land. Okay. But then also he was making a direct reference to his own state of self-exile, and having to be far away from home in a place that he originally and always would refer to as Babylon, right? And what does that mean? That the only safe place on earth for you for a given period of time is the place that you know to hate and fear. But also during that time, he makes, I think, some of his best and most popular music. The song Exodus, the songs Waiting in Vain, Jamming, One Love, which he also, interestingly enough, merges in a kind of medley fashion with Curtis Mayfield's famous song from the Civil Rights era, People Get Ready, which is also a song that states movement, about moving physically as a people, spiritually as well as emotionally, into the new age that we're going to live in. So at all points, his creativity was, I'm talking about Bob Marley here, his creativity was being provoked by the force movement of his body, but it was also producing a different quality of art where he was being reflective and responsible in talking about what does it mean to be both in a state of exile and have that spiritual yearning for home. Right? But you see this with a number of folks within the diaspora.
So that Bob Marley really does represent this sense of diasporic identity in his music and in his personhood.
He's a prime example, but I mean, you can see this in the autobiographical writings of Malcolm X, in the autobiography when even before he actually goes on the Hajj, when he makes his journeys to the African continent for the first time. You can see this in many renditions in the writings of people ranging from Howard Thurman to Maya Angelou to W.B. Du Bois.
Did you want to speak specifically to Malcolm X?
Sure. The idea that he makes, to my recollection, he makes at least 2 long journeys to the continent, but and then eventually, as I suggested, as I would suggest, he also makes his famous Hajj, his pilgrimage as a Muslim to Mecca, the holy city for Muslims in Saudi Arabia. And that experience not only of him serving in many ways as an ambassador for Black America to these sites on the continent, places like Nigeria and Ghana and Egypt and various other points on the map. You know, he helps to embody and represent African Americans in terms of encountering Africans, especially in their moment of independence and their movement towards being freed from colonial status under Western imperialism, and then also himself being exposed to this new kind of African personality, and as folks like Kwame Nkrumah would suggest, right? He sees an awakening on the African continent that he then both articulates in his writings, but also verbalizes when he goes back and starts both in his time, in his remaining time as a minister of the Nation of Islam, but then even after that, when he breaks with the nation, he begins to speak more knowledgeably and effectively about international affairs and a kind of global community that's awakening, a global revolution, if you will.
Okay. Okay, so let's switch to retentions, religious retentions.
Okay.
And I was wondering if you talk about the diaspora generally, historically and geographically, but is there a religious understanding of the African diaspora? Is there a way of defining it in religious terms?
Well, yes. The idea that whether we're talking about traditional African religions, and the idea that we're always trying to refute the kind of damage done by the teachings and proclamations of Western folks like the philosopher Hegel. When talking about the history of the world, just making quick offhand remarks saying that Africa had no history or civilization to speak of. Well, much of what the civilization of the world depends on, has depended upon, the contributions in religious and spiritual terms of African peoples. We see this, documented by the research of folks like Cheikh Anta Diop and W.B. Du Bois. I'm thinking about the kind of scholarship that obviously folks, especially folks who've wrestled with the Nile Valley civilizations